Okay. Thank you. All right, so we are doing our teacher quality meeting for June, and I appreciate you guys all being here. Sorry we weren't able to meet in the last couple of months. Also want to remind you that we are doing our doing this for Facebook, or for YouTube, so that if anyone wants to join this exciting meeting, they can. So we will be sticking to the agenda. The first thing we were going to do is review the budget. Rod, I did not get a updated budget from Laura. Did you get an updated budget? You're muted.
Yeah, there we go. I don't see one in my email, but I've just texted her, so I'll see if she responds before our meeting's out.
Okay. So the next thing we wanted to talk about then is just the professional learning end of the year PL. And I don't know if we had, if the district did a survey for folks to see how they felt about that. And if we have any details on what that looked like. Ryan, I don't know if it came to you or where those details went.
Yeah, I can definitely pull that up right now. I just changed my password, so give me a second. Can I share my screen? I don't know if I have the ability to share my screen.
Justin, can you give the ability to Ryan to share his screen?
I think he had said that everyone could, but I'm not sure.
Look like I can.
Just try it and see if it works.
The thing's not there.
Oh,
There we go. Yeah, so we have two types of surveys. We had the pre-assessment and the post-assessment. So we can look at the pre-assessment first, if you'd like, where John Rice had sent out some information on what we wanted to learn. The first view that I'll give you from Tableau is the school priorities. And this came from 959 responses. So you could kind of see what the school priorities were heading into professional learning in June, and as well as the SEB priorities. And that is something that guided our professional learning for the planning. So here are some of the priorities that people really were looking at. For example, calm and orderly environment was extremely important according to respondents. Positive adult to student relationships is really important. And then supporting staff to understand and respond to trauma experienced was really important. So that's some of the information we used to develop the professional learning. We also had confidence ratings, and these were focused around effective instruction, NACE-side elements, and solely kind of looking at if people were confident in doing it in one-to-one environments. So those were some of the numbers that we received there as well. There were some questions about experience, just in general about the continuous learning plan. And then some questions about what people wanted to learn during professional learning according to technology. Screencasting, Google Classroom was some of the highest ones that we wanted to learn. And so that's how we took this information to dive back into our professional learning, and then we did to develop our professional learning, and then we did a post-assessment, and that was our staff return to learn PL. And so if you look at our SEL confidence ratings here, if you take a look at it, the greens are I feel confident that I can define it and that I could So if you take a look at where people are right now on the I can define SEL, I can use tools to recognize, understand, and label, express, and then define the 5 SEL CASEL competencies, and then understand, develop into trauma. So that's where we were at the end of the professional learning. And then if we move over to effective teaching, same Likert scale of I could teach this, I can do this, I would need learning on this, and then I would need one-to-one help. So this kind of light red is I would need learning on this. The dark red is I need one-to-one help. And then the greens are I can do it or I could teach it. So that was after the professional learning. We had about half the responses, so about 400 responses compared to the 900 responses on the pre-assessment. But you can see we've kind of moved the scale there as well. And then also with instructional design, I can design a unit in my content area, online or in person, same Likert scale. And then if one thing that we were particularly proud of, if I need to teach remotely, I can. 93% of our staff have said yes, whereas 7% of the staff had said no. So that's where we are after the professional learning.
And that's 93% of the 400 responses, correct?
Yep. We had about 450 responses.
I would just like to say, I think looking at that, this is the first time I've seen that data. And for me, that tells me that the professional development targeted that last week was right on target. I mean, when you look at those beginning numbers and look at where we are at the end, I say kudos and congratulations to the team that put that together, because I think the teachers, just based on that, look, at least they seem a lot more confident in the need to go to remote learning if we have to do that. So nice job.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Ryan. That was interesting. I think it would be helpful if we had any way to get everyone to fill that out, which I know is never ever going to happen, because I do think the way it was set up last week, or set up during that PL week, people really appreciated. I heard, lots of comments about the flexibility and the how it was put together. The other things I kind of heard were that the SEL, which was, I think, supposed to be 4 hours, was maybe more than that, unless you didn't go as deep as you maybe should. And then it sounded like the Google stuff that was happening for people that needed that was really, really helpful. So I heard lots of good things about it. I think, again, the overall picture for people is just that they're still so concerned about what it really is going to look like in the fall. And I think the thought process of, I think I can do this, but can I really, because I don't really know what I'm going to have to do. So thanks for sharing that, Ryan. Any other, I know we have a couple teachers, any other comments about the PL for the end of the year?
I think one of the lessons learned for me, because I sent the survey out, I think probably mid-morning, midday on that Friday. Probably should have sent it out maybe Thursday in the afternoon, given that Friday was people's last day and they probably just scrambled and forgot all about it. So that was a lesson learned.
That could be the things. It could be.
I will tell you that I was one of them that answered I wouldn't be real comfortable yet teaching online, and I think maybe some of the other PE teachers have said that. But am I looking wrong? Our classes are full, right? Our professional development classes this summer are full.
The Google ones?
Yeah.
I do believe that they are full with waiting lists. Yes.
Yeah. And so that was one of my concerns, because we may need that this fall, but when I went to register for one, they're all full. So I didn't register, but I could definitely use the help.
Go ahead, Ryan.
So we had over 300 people respond. And Craig and I had sat down because we realized that a majority of those people were wanting the 4 or 5 Google classes that were being offered. So there should not be a wait list anymore for the Google Classroom. So if you filled it out, we were able to get everyone in there. Not like the classes, the self-management classes, the racial injustices classes, that type of stuff. Craig and I don't have as much control over getting more facilitators for that. Or for the Google ones, we were able to reach out to some of the people that could help teach those. So for example, the class that I'm teaching Google Apps for future ready students, we reached out to 3 instructional coaches, and they're willing to jump on so that we didn't, because we had 80 people that registered for it. And Craig and I just knew that we weren't able to provide quality feedback for 40 people each. So they were able to jump on, and then we can break that down. And so for the other classes that are being taught, like the strategies classes and self-care, those are one instructor, and we just don't want to give a poor experience to people. Because like the self-care one had 60 people, but we just know that Roberta can't give quality feedback to 60 people by herself. And so that's kind of the rationale behind those classes. But hopefully I know we were able to get every person that registered for Google Classroom signed up and going through it.
So if I didn't register because I saw they were full, are you telling me I should still register, or they're full and you can't?
Based on
Somebody else would ask me that question.
Yeah. So based on that, June, we closed the survey the first week of June because we were at capacity of trying to find people. So they are closed now. But in June, when we realized we had so many people, we reached out and said, can we get more people so that we don't have 60 people on a wait list? So my biggest concern is
For those of us that aren't comfortable or would need more help, and classes are full, what do we do coming up this fall if we start online then?
I think that's a great conversation for the next bullet point of what our plans pre-service are. I think so. So, yeah.
Well, the other thing I was wondering about is, do you think, Cindy, that it's specific to PE teach? I mean, I know there's a lot of different areas, but specific to PE, and how do you teach online for kids and that, or is it overall Google stuff?
I'm a lot more comfortable with the Google stuff than I was, because a lot of the classes, the classes that first week in June and stuff, the in-service was really good. But for teaching, I think it is a lot of the PE teachers, because we haven't used it a lot and it's so different. I don't know if it'd be the same for maybe like music and I also understand that maybe it's more vital right now that our classroom teachers have those classes and access to them, but I don't know. I just don't know.
I would agree. A lot of the feedback that we're receiving right now are some of those classes that are experiential, like with PE. How are you going to teach online PE on? Are you ensuring that kids are getting their minutes for activity, or even the idea of, I worked a lot with music teacher, a K-5 music teacher, of kids aren't going to have instruments at home. So how do you revamp your curriculum on that access to, I'm not a music teacher, but in my music,
I think we can offer things.
So
I think we can offer things. I don't know what assessment would be like, because I don't think there's any way to, hold them. I don't think it'd be very valid or reliable, but we can offer things.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I guess we just have to go with that. We're working on it through the summer. So as the summer goes, maybe I'll change and I'll think, I don't need the classes. We got it all taken care of.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully your the different curriculum facilitators are working on ideas for that too, because it's obviously not just you, it's, across the PE group and some of those other groups as well. So, anything else for the end of the year PL?
I would just add, I heard a lot of people say that they really enjoyed the kind of self-paced nature of it, and being able to have that flexibility. I think so often, when we're leading up to that last week of school and we're into that PL time, we're just kind of wiped and we're just surviving and limping through that week. And to ask teachers to do much more reflection for especially setting like a SIP goal for the next year is really tough, because we're just getting done with this year and holy cow, it was a long year. But I feel like maybe the time, even though since we had this kind of time away, it was maybe a little bit more refreshing, rejuvenating to have that kind of freedom to work at your own pace. But also then when we got together as a staff, at least in my experience, it really seemed to be a pretty rich conversation. So thanks for being responsive to teachers' needs and allowing them to have that flexibility to use the time that week.
Thanks, Nick. All right, so then the next thing we were going to chat about was the plans for pre-service. And I don't know, I know that there have been some things shared with admin. I'm not sure, Ryan, if you have anything, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot. If you have anything that you'd want to share, not specific, like showing us a screen, but just in general, or even Rod, I guess, about what the plans look like for the pre-service.
I hesitate, and it's not because there's any big secret. It's that I think all of that is in process as we're developing the return to learn plan of what that might need to look like. My sense would be that there would continue to be a focus on SEL. There would continue to be a focus on digital literacy and on instruction. So the three areas that we covered in June, we would probably need to make sure that we're continuing to focus on those. There might be some things around, how, and I don't know if we build this into some of the SEL stuff, but hygiene and sanitation, some of that I think we're going to have to cover as we re-enter school. But that family engagement be a piece that comes out of the one of the other big piece is going to be on just instruction and designing those units to make sure that we're covering what was missed in the fall. And I know that we got a good start on that in the PL before we left. But so Ryan, I see you might want to talk.
Yeah, no, I'm just for the new teacher pre-service. I know Connie Starr has sent out email to the building principals. She's planning for 3 different scenarios, virtual, hybrid, as well as face-to-face. So virtual being like we don't have the ability to come back, or hybrid meaning maybe they meet in their buildings because there'll be smaller numbers and it's more screencast or Google Meet, or if we're able to meet face-to-face to get the 100 or so new teachers together. And Rod, I know that a lot of our conversation in the last couple of weeks on the SEL component has also been kind of how do we reintroduce students, especially since they've been gone for 6 months, but also with everything else that's been going on with the social unrest, and having those conversations on what trauma have they felt just from the coronavirus and the COVID closure, but also just the inequities or racial tensions that could be out there that they're feeling, and how to empower staff members to have those real vulnerable conversations. So Ken or Rod, if you guys want to comment on that, but I know that was a conversation that had come up quite a bit recently.
Yeah, that definitely was a conversation we had, that we do believe that we need to prepare administrators and staff on how to support kids coming back, not only as a result of the pandemic, but all the racial tension going on in our society. And so how do we support kids with that? I think that we're going to have to focus on some tools and resources to help staff support kids. The other piece that we had a conversation on was staff self-care. Staff has experienced this crisis as well and have had multiple challenges themselves around it. And so how can we help support staff? And I know that that's some of that social emotional work that's in there, but we had a recent conversation with Mercy Hospital about how they supported their staff as they were on the front lines of working all of this and putting their own lives at risk. And we know that teachers, when they come back, it's going to be a similar thing, that the challenge of coming back knowing that you are normally in germ infested areas, and how do we not only make sure you stay safe, but handling the stress that goes in with that. And so we're having some conversation with Mercy about how they approached it, so that we might too think about how do we put that self-care in place for our staff.
Yeah. Excellent. Any other ideas or suggestions for that pre-service? I think what they talked about is kind of very encompassing. There probably isn't going to be enough time to hit it all really well.
No, there's not. And you throw in that K-8, we're rolling out new social emotional learning instructional materials, one-to-one at elementary and middle school, that is going to take a big chunk of time as well. And there's not going to be enough time to do everything. So we're going to be very careful about how we prioritize everything.
Yeah.
I would say the same.
And how
we had a plan in place already for thinking about our building with the technology rollout, what we are going to do, teachers teaching them how to teach the lessons and everything else. And we had that all laid out. And so I'm just concerned about how much we're going to put on the plate, and then the stress that adds to everyone. So just being very conscious of what are the immediate needs, how do we address those immediate needs, and then how do we build in time for those other things that are going to be important.
Yeah.
It's always the dynamic of professional development. There's definitely a lot of topics and not enough time. So we've got to prioritize and think about those different ways to deliver it in, so that staff can engage in it.
Yeah. All right. Did you get anything on the budget, Rod?
I did not. She and I had a conversation yesterday briefly about budget, and it sounds like things are good, throughout this year, given that we didn't have the HRS. But that doesn't mean that we can go overboard, because we do have to think about next year and having funds available for next year too. So even though we have some room, we don't have a ton of room.
Yeah. And I think if people can remember, when we looked at the budget the last time, we were going to be running pretty close with the HRS expenses and the something else, which I can't think of now. Kent, do you remember what it was?
It was a social emotional learning. We were doing or not the social emotional, the standards-based.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you, Linda. So I think we are fine with it because we didn't have the expenses of that conference this summer. I just wanted to be sure we had a little bit of knowledge of that prior to going into the number 3 fund request for the building HRS team. So.
And I would say that maybe the other thing to think about is I think some of the planning that is happening on the instructional side this summer it seems to be more. And we know out of that Iowa Core bucket that pot is really getting stretched this summer. And so I know that next year there's probably going to be a bit of a challenge with that pot of money in how we apply it. But otherwise, it's what we saw the last time.
Yeah. Is that primarily because we haven't been in school, so teachers haven't been able to come during the school day and have it be a sub cost compared to a stipend cost?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So I don't know if Rod or Kent want to talk about the request for the building HRS teams. I'm sure the administrators mostly know what that is, but just so our teachers understand what that request is.
Sure. I'm happy to talk about that. So it's kind of been our tradition as a committee to offer HRS teams 1 day of work in the summer and to fund that for them with two things kind of weighing on us at the K-8 level and potentially at the 9-12 level as well. There's some thought about adding another 8 hours to that, so doubling the amount. The two things are, one, adding new SEL instructional materials and the requirements for the preparation of rolling that out, K-8. So teams need extra time for that, for training around that. We've asked our HRS teams to take on the leadership for this rollout. And there's potential for that happening at the 9-12 level as well, although I'm not sure where we're at in that process yet. And then the other piece is we kind of are thinking that our HRS teams are just going to need a little more extra time to get ready for next year, given everything that's going on. We're doing 5 hours of training for them around caring school community. That's the new materials for K-8. And that would leave another 3 hours, or about half a day, for them to do additional work to get ready for next year. So that's the ask, to double the normal amount for this summer.
And what falls into that also is that our HRS teams have really not had any focused school improvement planning for next year because we asked them to hold on that till after we got the return to learn planning done. So they're going to need some time to dig into their school improvement plans later this year or this summer. Kent, I know that, so we're asking 8 hours and an additional 8 hours, so a total of 16 hours. I do have good news for this team. The ask really is only 8 hours for TQ. The other 8 hours, we're going to use our Title IV funds for that. So, and partly because we know if we leverage that many dollars from TQ, it is going to probably put TQ in a bind for next year. So Laura and I talked about moving that other 8 hours into the Title IV. So the ask would really only be 8 hours, which I think that's 50,000 or so, Kent?
I would guess that's about right. We have about just a little bit north of 200 people on HRS teams. And I don't know, if you do that at a little more than $30 an hour, it's about 50,000. Yeah. Yep. For 8 hours.
So that is the same as what we've pretty much done in the past, is that additional 8 hours.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
And I think as a principal, I mean, I would, if we had to have a motion, I would support that or make a motion. But I think that saying that we'll take the 8 hours that we've always said, because some buildings have not used the full 8 hours. Some buildings have only used half that time, to say you have up to this amount of time, and recognize that some will use the full amount of time and some will then figure out other ways to take care of that. But I would fully support that.
Yes. And I am not sure how we've done this in the past, so I'm just going to do a vote. And have it be that, are you in favor?
Tanya, maybe I missed this, but without looking at the budget first, we have the money in the budget to cover it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's about 50,000 and the money is there for it.
Yeah. I think we saved, I'm sure it was over 100,000 by not doing the HRS conference. So we are
Right, close to 200,000 probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the HRS,
At least 150.
and
Definitely.
the HRS team dollars are already built into the budget.
Yes. And I guess that's the reason I'm not sure if we need to vote on it or not, because that was one of those things that we've done in the past. So it already is in the budget. But I guess just a head nod if that sounds okay to everyone, since it is in the budget already, and we'll just continue that expense. And I think also I appreciate the thought process of using the Title IV funds to get that extra day, because I do worry about where we're going to be with funds coming in next year, and again, the needs of the group. So, all right, thank you for that. Then hopefully you had a chance to receive the email that I sent that had the course approval. Since we're on YouTube, I'm going to go ahead and read what the course is. But I know for some of you, it might be easier to read yourself or to see in print. I had listed the course that we approved in April, which was that using restorative practices in the classroom to maximize learning and minimize disruption. So that one has been approved. And I'm not sure, Ryan, do you know if they are working on that for a fall class, or is that something that they put out this summer?
I'll be a fall class.
A fall class, okay. And then the next one is also for a fall class. It's Google Tools in the Classroom. This course, participants will explore and learn tools in G Suite for education to empower themselves and students with digitally engaged learning opportunities for critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and creativity to meet learning objectives. Specific applications such as Google Classroom, Slides, Docs, Forms, Meet, and Jamboard will be highlighted. Tasks and activities will be differentiated to meet the needs of all participants' tech levels. Participants will apply their knowledge to create and implement digital lessons using Google tools for in-person and online classroom settings. And I believe that is submitted by Bridget Castelluccio, who teaches at Kenwood. I'm not sure if she would be the only instructor for that at this time, but is everyone okay with that as a topic for a new class to be paid for TQ dollars? A thumbs up or a head shake is appropriate. Thank you. Looks like motion carries and we all approve that. Anything else as far as topics or things that we didn't get to this year, or that we want to be sure to touch on next year, or anything else for the good of the cause before we head into summer? I really appreciate you guys meeting like this. I know it is not the best way to do a TQ meeting. For the sake of us, we like to kind of have those in person and be able to just bounce ideas off each other real quick, but we're doing what we have to be doing. So if that is all, I want you all to have a great summer, and you can be in touch with me over the summer if there's anything else that comes up, and I will try to get an updated budget and email that to you all, so you have that for the summer, kind of prior to us getting ready for the fall. And just a reminder that this will be Rod's last TQ meeting, as we will have someone new with us coming in for next year. So thanks everybody, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you
Rod,
guys
for
for all your hard
everything.
work.
Thanks,
Thank
Justin.
you for everything.
Thanks, Justin. Bye-bye.